Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Jason Mackey's First 10, a short version podcast talking all things Pittsburgh sports. Today is Thursday, December 12th, and, well, a lot going on. I know we say that every day, but seriously, there is a lot going on. A day closer to Steelers-Eagles Pitt volleyball back in action. I'll be heading over there a little bit later this afternoon. The Panthers take on Oregon at Peterson Event Center, and a chance to, again, win today, and you win Saturday, and they go back to a Final Four, and that would be a very cool storyline. So going to talk a little bit about that. Going to talk a little Steelers, Eagles, and the test ahead for the Steelers. A very difficult one with Saquon Barkley, but actually want to lead with some Pirates topics, some residual thoughts from the winter meetings, stuff still ahead, and some thoughts on the Spencer Horwitz trade, which, created some negativity, some blowback, some frustration. I understand. So we're going to talk about it together. First, want to remind you, though, that this show is brought to you by Edgar Snyder and Associates. If you're injured in an accident, you're probably wondering what's next. For over 40 years, Edgar Snyder and Associates has helped injury victims answer that question. Whether it's gathering evidence, collecting medical records, or dealing with insurance companies, Edgar Snyder and Associates has helped over 75,000 people handle what's next. Call 1-800-94-EDGAR or visit edgarsnyder.com for a free consultation. And remember, there's never a fee unless they get money for you. So I wanted to zoom out a little bit and talk about the Pirates writ large. Some questions I had about them, some important storylines for the Pirates outside of the Spencer Horwitz trade. And I wanted to kick that off before getting into, I think, what bothered me and probably what bothered you about that trade. So one of the questions that I had, and I addressed this previously, but it's something that I think is going to be even more important. David Bednar, what do? Does he close games? Did they use a by-committee approach? He's dropped some weight. How does that play? And did they add in the bullpen? I think the Horwitz trade, one byproduct of this, we were all upset that they're turning first base over to Spencer Horwitz. And you would think, probably him. I had some people suggesting that he would be a platoon guy. I don't know. I mean, I understand the platoon splits, but it certainly seems like somebody they want to give an ample opportunity to at first base. Anyway, they save some money doing that. So where else are you going to spend it? Right. And I go to the bullpen. I think that's an area where they can address things via free agency. By the way, if you haven't checked out Noah and Andrew's story on stuff going on, the winter meetings, where they're at, kind of stuff that they've looked into, make sure you do that. But it basically paints the picture of a lot of their significant moves are going to come via trade and not necessarily via free agency. Well, in the bullpen, it's probably going to come via free agency. That's the best way to build out depth there. Now, the second question, in addition to David Bednar, what he does and who is brought in to support him, is what happens with that money? What happens in the outfield? Do they go out and sign somebody? I think we've seen enough that the Tyler O'Neill 3-year, $42 million deal, or, Michael Conforto 2 years, $19 million, probably isn't going to happen. At the same time, think about the past 2 years. What, $35 million in trades and free agency, something like that? They might move some money around, but they still have, hold your ears, financial flexibility. Yes, there's some of that. And they have needs. They haven't addressed all of those needs. One of the things the guys put in there was Jack Sawinski could work out with Max Muncy this winter. Great. That's fantastic. But there's no guarantee Jack can get back. And maybe if you are going to use Horwitz as a platoon guy, you could platoon him with Brian Reynolds. I don't love it, but could be that. Not that I'm not going to have Brian Reynolds in my lineup. I'm probably just not messing around with him in left field. I would keep him there. Another thing that was discussed, Ke'Bryan Hayes, his health. Derek Shelton spoke on that, said he's doing all baseball activities. I cannot emphasize enough how important this is for the Pirates. Offensively, more than anything. I mean, yeah, defensively, they have to catch it. They have to do a better job fundamentally. Ke'Bryan Hayes is a huge part of that. But as far as lengthening the lineup, driving in more runs, I mean, think about what he's done when he's good. An OPS near 8, high 7s, something like that, maybe over. I do think it's in there. And that's just, it was nowhere close to that last year. Hayes was nowhere close to healthy. That is, I've used the analogy of a dial that you can turn with the Pirates, and that's when you can turn an awful lot. That's something I'm going to be sort of, watching the rest of the winter. And also, what happens to fill Luis Ortiz's spot right now, right? I mean, you would think that moves Bailey Falter into the rotation. One of the things that Noah and Andrew talked about was, Mitch Keller being available for a trade, Jarrett Jones being available for a trade. I don't think they're going to trade either of those guys. I don't see how they can. You're not a better team if you do. I mean, I don't know if they're a better team by trading Luis Ortiz. Believe me, I do not like the trade. I mentioned that on the pod yesterday, but I would really dislike trading Jarrett Jones or Mitch Keller. I think that's more of an example of they're willing to listen and talk about a lot of things, and sometimes that gets out. And I think sometimes, again, they wouldn't be against it. I just don't think it's a priority. You would have to get a king's ransom to move Jarrett Jones. But anyway, who steps up, who earns a rotation spot, right? It has to open the door a little bit for Bubba Chandler. I think Bubba Chandler had a chance to begin with, don't get me wrong, but now there's a spot there. There's a spot there to be won. Bailey Falter, I guess you could have entertained a trade for him. I didn't necessarily like it. I don't like the idea of trading pitching in general. I've mentioned that, but who steps up and earns another spot in the starting rotation is something I'll be watching. All right, we're going to take a short break. I'll be back with some talk about the Pitt volleyball team, a rematch, and where this thing can go. Really excited about all that, and as well as the Steelers game this Sunday. Back to talk about that in a few seconds, but first a message from the Bradenton Area Convention and Visitors Bureau.
Embrace the laid-back charm of island life while sinking your toes in the sand and discovering real, authentic Florida in the Bradenton area. Unspoiled beauty and pristine beaches, a vibrant waterfront downtown energized by local arts and culture, fresh Floridian cuisine with a flourish of rich history, and friendly locals ready to welcome you to this preserved paradise on Florida's Gulf Coast. Plan your visit today at BradentonGulfIslands.com.
Welcome back to First 10. We're here middle of the morning, Monday through Friday, talking all things Pittsburgh sports in about 10 minutes. Thanks so much for finding us. So Pitt volleyball, number 1 overall seed in the NCAA tournament, 31-1 this season. They'll host Oregon at Peterson Event Center today about 3:30. This is actually a rematch of the first game of the season between those two, or the first match of the season between those two, I should say. Oregon comes in 24-7. Ducks are not a pushover. 5 wins over ranked teams, including number 20 TCU in the second round of the NCAA tournament. If you haven't checked out Abby Schnabel's preview of the match, I would recommend doing so. But it sounds like the match will be won at the front of the net. Oregon is one of the best blocking teams in the NCAA, so I'll be curious to see that. The times that I've watched Pitt this season and what they do at the net and some of their middles, it's really impressive. Now, Olivia Babcock is easy to watch and be amazed by. Rachel Fairbanks is easy to watch and be amazed by. Same thing for Tori Stafford. But what they do in the middle, how much they control that, it's really incredible. And Oregon is right there with them. Should be an entertaining match. Again, this is the one that I'm going to be able to get to Saturday. I wish I could. They're going to play the winner of Missouri and Kentucky, but I won't be able to do it. Actually going to be en route to Philadelphia. But anyway, I think Pitt gets a win. I think they get a win on Saturday. I think they make it back to the Final Four. And, well, it's going to be a heck of a time in Louisville. Really looking forward to that. Also, step back and think about the Steelers right now and some of the tests we've seen for that defense. And that's my final point today, is how battle-tested this defense will be if they get through this. You have Joe Burrow, who easily could be the MVP of the NFL. I was reading, a thing in USA Today about the top 5 candidates, and Burrow is right there, and they're just sort of bemoaning how bad the Bengals have been, 5-8, I believe. But I mean, you look at Josh Allen, you look at Saquon Barkley, you look at Patrick Mahomes. Notice anything in common at that point? Lamar Jackson as well. The Steelers are going to see them all down the stretch. Burrow twice. We know what Lamar Jackson can do. Saquon Barkley, the big storyline, right, is preventing him from, at least the Steelers doing their part, preventing him from getting the NFL rushing record. I was thinking about the MVP discussion too, and I would pick Saquon at this point. I really would. I think if you take him away from the Eagles, the fall is greater than if you take any other player away. You take Lamar away from the Ravens, you still got Derrick Henry, right? You take Patrick Mahomes away from the Chiefs, you still got some wide receivers. You still have Travis Kelce. You still got, I guess, an opportunistic defense, the ability to win some games late. Josh Allen, I think there's a valid case there, but frankly, I've been more impressed with Saquon Barkley's season and his numbers. And I mean, we're talking about a guy who's going to break the NFL rushing record, theoretically, go over 2,000 yards. This does not happen a lot. Now, hopefully it doesn't happen on Sunday. I think the Steelers have a very good chance of actually bottling him up, and I'm curious to see what the passing game looks like because Jalen Hurts hasn't been putting up a ton of numbers. But this is a massive storyline that we've been talking about, this 3-game stretch, George Pickens and how they're going to address that loss and even Hard Knocks and this, that, and the other. But I mean, this is a gigantic storyline. And if the Steelers get through this, if they get through this gauntlet of not only teams, but MVP candidates, boy, is it really going to be something. All right, that does it for me today. I'll be back here tomorrow with the Q&A episode. Thanks so much for checking us out. Appreciate it as always. Make sure you like and subscribe. You can get this content and much more on our Post-Gazette and With Her Drive podcast and YouTube channels. Thanks for watching First 10, everybody.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.